Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Walsh School for the Waterbury Board of Education workshop. We'll begin this meeting this evening with a moment of silent prayer, and let's please all keep the victims and families of the vicious attack in Pittsburgh at the synagogue in our prayers tonight, and also the husband of Mrs. Baranowski, Charles Baranowski. She's a teacher at Chase School. Her husband passed away last week. So please keep. Commissioner Juanita, would you please lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To the flag of the United States of America. Looks like we're going to have some entertainment here tonight. For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who's... Looks like we're going to have some entertainment here tonight. Okay. Oh, you're right. Okay, we'll begin this evening with the principal's report. I know that Mrs. Paolino was here. Good evening. Thank you for hosting us this evening. Okay. Oh, you're right. Okay, we'll begin this evening with
Good
the
evening,
principal's
Dr.
report.
Commissioners. Welcome to Walsh.
Mrs. Paolino was here. Good evening.
We are going
Thank you for
to
hosting
give our
us this
report
evening.
today with the students providing the information to
Nice.
you.
Good evening,
Okay,
Dr.
so we're going to
Commissioners. Welcome to
start
Walsh.
with
We
two
are
of our
going to
students,
give our
Daniel
report
Martin
today
and
with
Alicia
the students
Barrows.
providing the
Alicia's in
information
first grade, Daniel's
to
in
you.
third, and they're
Okay,
going
so we're
to
gonna
present the
start
Walsh Pledge
with,
to you. Two of our students, Daniel Martin and Alicia Barrows. Alicia's in first grade, Daniel's in third, and they're going to present the Walsh Pledge to you.
So stand together right here and nice and clearly and loudly say the pledge.
We are the owls of Wash, and we pledge to respect others, show excellence, be accountable, keep our community safe, and be honest.
Beautiful.
We are the
Wow.
owls of Wash, and we pledge to respect others, show excellence, be accountable.
So we
keep
have
our
many
community
parents
safe,
here
and be
this
honest.
evening, and can I just have you stand, my Walsh parents, just to acknowledge who's here? Can I just have you stand, my Welsh
Welcome,
parents,
and
just
thank
to
you so
acknowledge
much for
who's here?
supporting the school and your children. We really appreciate it.
We have really improved our parent involvement, and so
Welcome,
just
and thank
before
you
I
so
have the
much for
kids
supporting
give
the
all
school
of the things
and
that
your
we've been
children.
doing, the
We really
information, I
appreciate
just
it.
wanted to share with you this year. We've had some very successful events.
Improved our parent involvement.
Our open
and
house
so
had over
just before I
120
have the kids
families
give all of
attend,
the things that we've
which
been doing,
is
the
a
information,
marked
I just wanted to
improvement.
share with you this year.
5
We've
years
had some
ago,
very
we had
successful
approximately
events.
5%
Our open
of
house
our,
had
of
over
our parents
120
participate in our first
families
open house.
attend,
So over the
which
past 5
is,
years, we've had a
marked
great improvement. We had
5
our
years ago, we had
Hispanic Heritage
approximately
Night
5%
potluck dinner. Unfortunately, it was the night
house.
Long Hill Road
So
was
over the past 5
closed
years,
due
we've had a
to
great
an accident,
improvement.
and they lost
We
power.
had our
But we still had
Hispanic Heritage Night
about 25 families
potluck
attend.
dinner.
Unfortunately, it was pouring rain, so we had 52 had RSVP'd, but we still were very happy with that, and 9 families
about 25
participated by bringing
families
their
attend,
food from their
through it was
different
pouring rain, so
countries, and
we had
and,
52 had RSVP'd,
ethnic,
but we still were very happy
ethnic
with
dishes,
that,
and it was really a
9
nice
families,
night. And
participated by
then
bringing
last
their food
Thursday,
from their
we had
different,
our Fall
countries
Festival
and-
Spectacular
and,
event, which consisted of reading
ethnic-
activities,
ethnic
crafts,
dishes, and it was really a nice night
that took place in the
then
gym. Last Thursday,
and
in the
we had
hallway,
our Fall Festival
over to the
Spectacular
side, event, we turned
which
the school
consisted
into a
of
trick-or-treating
reading
area,
activities,
so families that
crafts,
wanted to
and,
participate in that could, and
that
we
took
had
place in the gym.
245
And
students
in the
attend,
hallway,
and
over
167
to the
parents or
side,
guardians.
we turned the
So
school
that was a
into a
great event.
trick-or-treating
This is our
area.
third year of
So
doing that.
families that wanted
And
to
we also
participate in that
had,
could,
and I
and we
wanted
had
to share,
245
former
students
Walsh students
attend,
that came back
and
to volunteer,
167 parents
2
or
students from
guardians.
Career Academy,
So that
1
was a
from
great
Wilby,
event.
1
This
from
is our third year
Caner,
of doing
and 2
that.
from Wallace
And
Middle
we
School.
also had, I wanted to share,
unsolicited.
former
They
Walsh
know about the
students that
event,
came
they
back
asked if they
to
could come back,
volunteer.
and then we had
2 students
a
from
student
Career
from
Academy, 1 from
Wilby and a
Wilby,
student
1
from Career
from
Academy
Caner,
that did
and 2
not
from Wallace
attend
Middle
Walsh
School.
that heard about the event and wanted to come.
Unsolicited.
Nice.
So I did just know about the event. They asked if we were pretty excited. And then we had a student from that we are getting more families. Will be and a student from Career Academy that did not attend Walsh that heard about the event. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have Nichelle pretty excited. Lumfakiati, who is in first grade, and Alicia De La Rosa, who is in fifth grade, to come up and just explain some things that we've been doing starting the school year. Lumfakiati, who is in first grade, and Alicia De La Rosa, who is in fifth grade, to come up and just explain some things that we've been doing starting the school year.
Don't be afraid. Speak into the microphone. Oh, God, how cute is she?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alicia De La Rosa, and I am a fifth grade student here at Walsh. Tonight, I am going to share with you what leaving a positive footprint is all about. Ladies and gentlemen. Earlier this month, our entire school participated in an anti-bullying activity. Tonight, I am going to share with you an interactive lesson that involved both social, emotional, and academic learning on what bullying is and how it impacts anti-bullying activity. The lessons include watching videos, having a class discussion, sharing feelings, learning and understanding new words, and some even sing along to the words of Taylor Swift's Shake It Off. The lessons include watching videos, although the lessons vary, the message is the same. Sharing feelings, bullying is mean, it doesn't make you cool. It is wrong and we don't stand for it. To the words of Taylor Swift. In fact, we learned the difference between, although the lessons varied, in being an upstander and bullying is mean. A bystander is a person who just watches and doesn't do anything when someone is being bullied. An upstander does the opposite. They stand up to bullies and never allow another to be bullied. So each class and all staff members made footprints with a positive message written on them. The purpose is to show that we are an anti-bullying school. We at Walsh don't just say we're against bullying, we take action. We have learned to be upstanders and to create an atmosphere of learning that leaves a positive impact on our students, our staff, and all of our visitors. I hope that you will all take a moment to view and read some of our footprints that cover the walls of the hallway as you leave tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our staff, and all of our visitors. I hope that you will all take a moment to view and read some of our footprints that cover the walls of the hallway as you leave tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And both of these young ladies wrote their own pieces, so you also can see some of the writing that's going on here at Walsh. Okay, Nichelle. And both of these
I'm
young
Nichelle,
ladies
and
wrote
I'm
their
in
own
first grade.
pieces, so you
At
also
Walsh
can
School,
see
we have been
the
learning
writing
about
that's
being
going
an
on here at
upstander.
Walsh.
An upstander is someone who stands up for someone who is being bullied. The person who is getting bullied might be two-sided. At Walsh School, we have been learning about being an positive footprint. An upstander is someone who stands up for someone so people know what's being bullied. The person who is getting bullied might be something nice to read to make them happy. This is my positive footprint to leave a message around. It says, if someone is bullying you, stand up for yourself. Thank you.
Wow, upstander. Whoa.
And Nichelle memorized that. She did not read her paper at all just now.
You are a true upstander. Wow. All right. Upstander. Whoa.
And Nichelle memorized that. She did not read
Ellen,
her
I
paper
see some
at
of your
all
teachers.
just
Maybe.
now.
Oh, okay. You are a
Yes,
true
that's exactly what
upstander.
Nichelle
All
was
right.
going to do. I'll acknowledge them now.
Whatever,
No, that's okay. Could the Walsh teachers
Ellen,
please
I
stand
see
up? We have
some of your
several of them
teachers.
here
Maybe-
tonight.
oh, okay.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to do. I'll acknowledge them now. No, that's okay. Could the Walsh
And I'd also
teachers
like to
please
say
stand
that
up?
we really
several of
have
them here
basically a
tonight.
no transfer rate anymore at Walsh. So the staff that's here has pretty much been with me since they've either been hired or. And I'd also like to say that we really have basically a no transfer rate anymore at Walsh. So the staff that's here has pretty much.
So
been
now
with
I'm
me,
going to have what some of
since
you,
they've
I
either been
heard, were
hired
looking
or
forward to. That's
we
why we
just
invited
all
them
work together and
back.
continue
It's
to
our,
do so.
we
So
like to say
we're very
world
proud of
famous
that
bucket
here.
band is here to entertain you this
So
evening.
now I'm going to have what
some of you, I heard, were looking forward to.
Andre Foote is our
That's why
music
we
teacher,
invited
and
him
he just
back.
does an
It's our,
amazing job
we
with
like
our
to say
students.
World famous bucket
To-
band.
Some of you know the
Here to
background, but I will
entertain
tell
you
you,
this
when he came
evening.
here, he had no instruments. That
Andre
was 5
Foote
years
is our
ago.
music teacher,
Over the
and he
course of
just
the
does
5
an
years
amazing job with
through
our students.
the
Comcast
some of you know the background.
grant,
I will
which
tell you when he
Commissioner
came here,
Hernandez helped
he
us
had
with, so thank you.
no instruments.
We were
That was
able to
5
get
years ago.
some great
Over the
instruments,
course of the
and
5
he
years
also has
through
advocated
the,
and gone out there
Comcast
and
grant, which
he has done
Commissioner
his
Hernandez helped us with, so thank you. We were able to
donors
get
choose,
some
and
great
he's gotten some instruments,
he
and so we
also
now
has
have
advocated
a lot of
and
things
gone
for our
out there
students, and we're really excited.
He has done his,
However, what they love the most are our Home Depot buckets.
donors choose, and he's gotten some
and that's a big
instruments,
deal
and
to
so
be in the
we
bucket
now
band here.
have
So I'm going to have
a lot
Mr.
of
Foote
things for
come
our
up,
students,
and maybe he
and
can
it's- and we're
introduce
really
our
excited.
students, and they can
However,
perform
what
for
they
you.
love the most are our Home Depot buckets.
And that's a big deal to be in the bucket band here. So I'm going to have Mr. Foote come up, and maybe he can introduce our students, and they can perform for you.
Should we go in the front?
Just want to say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for having us tonight. These guys are a little nervous. It's their first performance. We're working on some music for our upcoming concert in December. But it's a good performance opportunity for them. Thank you so much. So this is the 4th and 5th grade bucket band. It's a little nervous. It's their first performance. We're working on 40 minutes music for our upcoming concert in December. And these guys absolutely love it. Good performance opportunity for them. This is a group of beginners and also students who were in the bucket band last year. So a special group that we from my left is Israel Matos, Yadiel Hernandez, Nikari Gonzalez, Ariana Fawcett, D'Angelo Martinez, Luis Rodriguez, Alicia De La Rosa, Dalia Hope Sanchez, and Aiden Kent. My left is Israel Matos, Yadiel Hernandez, Nikari Gonzalez, Ariana Fawcett, D'Angelo Martinez, Luis Rodriguez, Alicia De La Rosa, Dalia Hope Sanchez, and Aiden Kent.
That's it? No more? Fantastic. It gets better every year. It's amazing.
Thank you. So that is what we have to present to you
That's it?
this
No
evening. If anyone wants to ask me anything, I can
Fantastic. It gets
tell you
better
whatever you want to know
every
about
year. It's
Walsh.
amazing.
But that was
Thank
all.
you.
We thought the students
So
spoke
That is
their
what we have
information
to
we thought
present
was
to you
important for you
this
guys to
evening.
hear. If
Commissioners,
anyone wants to
Commissioner
ask me
Vanstone.
anything, I can tell you whatever you want to know about Walsh. But that was all. We
Thank
thought
you,
the
Madam
students
President,
spoke
through you,
their information we thought was important for you
Principal,
guys to hear.
just a few years
Commissioner
ago, you
Vanstone.
were over at, if I remember correctly, Rotella.
Thank you,
Madam President, through you made the decision to come here. Principal, and the school was going through transition, I will say nicely, and you made the decision. We had a lot of challenges. Come here. You have taken on this challenge personally, I know you have knocked on doors to talk to parents. You have taken on this challenge. You truly need to be commended for coming personally. Here. Some of your peers may think I know you have knocked on doors to talk to parents. But this is what we need. You truly need to be commended for the talent we have. Some of your peers may to our schools. You're crazy and move it forward. And it sounds like your staff has bought in.
They're
We
amazing.
need
The staff is amazing.
the talent. And as a good manager, you direct it to your staff. So I really appreciate your transition rate. Staff has bought in. Speaks volumes to that.
The staff is amazing.
And as a good manager, I am very proud that you have acknowledged that there are some nuggets here, many nuggets. Speaks volumes to that. And so I am very proud that you have acknowledged that there are some nuggets here, many nuggets. And the fact that our Vice President Harvey came from this school proves that there are some nuggets. Now, I'm not going to give her any accolades. I just can't do that. But we are special to have Walsh School, so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
But we have, over the last year and a half, had some issues with especially our water quality. And I just want to make sure you're being made aware of those results and making sure that we are making sure that you have what you need to know about those results and making sure our students are safe.
Yes, so that information is shared with me. We currently, and we have not had a problem for close to a year now, but that information does get shared, and they do test the water.
And I'm going to tell you, just me and you, if that stops, I would like to know about it. Okay? But I do appreciate you, your staff, quite honestly, for doing a job that many would not want to do. And as to come to a school that has challenges and to make it better. So thank you.
Vice President Harvey.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, since Commissioner Tom Van Stone had to mention that I did attend the school, I did, proudly. I lived directly across the street, 64 Dyckman Street. I could go home at lunchtime, eat lunch, come back to school just as long as I made it before the bell rang. So, and I also, do I see Linda Riddick Barron, who lived up the street? She is also an alumnus of Walsh School. We attended proudly. We attended, because Linda's older than me, we attended when Dyckman Street was a two-way street, two-way traffic. But, you know, it's always a thrill to come back here. It's always a thrill. Everything looks smaller now, you know. As you get older, things look smaller. When I was a child, things looked huge. But I'm always amazed at Mr. Foote. I've just watched him just progress with our kids, and I'm just really very appreciative of him and the things that he's done for our kids. I also want to applaud the parents. We've always had a strong parent following here at Walsh. I want to applaud you parents for taking the interest and supporting your kids. Really appreciate that. And I also want to commend the teachers for also being here because it takes, you know, you always hear it takes a village, and it does. Okay, so I just want to applaud what's going on here at Walsh. And could you give us some feedback on the new playscape? You were talking to us, so give us an update on that.
Well, we just love it. If you look at it, it's amazing.
Yes.
So I received the keys yesterday, so it was cleared and ready to go. It has that fabulous floor,
Yes.
which is really great for safety, but also hygiene, because it's easy.
our custodial staff can rinse it, clean it. It's very, very easy to maintain. Our teachers and students went out today, and they will be going out again tomorrow to use it as a teaching moment. There's apps that you can use to go along with the playscape. So we've been going over the rules and safe play because the kids are so excited about it, but we just want to make sure they're safe on it. And so today and tomorrow we'll be doing that, and it'll be full usage on Monday with everybody out there. So it's
That's
really
great.
Thank you all for helping us get that, because it's just amazing. We're very appreciative.
Thank you. Is your parent liaison here? I know
Yes, she was here, and she went to Walsh. Where is she,
Okay.
Miss Digsby?
I met her last week. There she is.
We
Great.
actually have 2 staff that work here that went to Walsh too. One teacher and Miss Digsby. So
Okay,
that's great.
great. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ruffin.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Paolino, for the great presentation. I think the presentation where the students are your spokespersons, and, really reminds us of the reason why we're all here. So I want to thank you for that, and your amazingly talented students, great public speakers and writers and performers. So it was great to be here with you this evening. To thank all the teachers and staff who are here with you. I want to support you in all the work that you do. And thank you so much, parents, for allowing us to be able to teach your children and to work with you as we want to make every wonderful opportunity available to your children. It's great to see you here this evening, and it's a pleasure being here with you as superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question, Ellen. I know that Walsh School had some investments in reform, and I wondered if you could just give us a snapshot of some of those reforms that you've implemented that obviously are showing success.
Sure. So 6 years ago, Walsh was chosen to enter part of the Connecticut State Department of Education Commissioners Network, and we took that as an opportunity to improve. We did not take that as a negative at all, because it gave us a lot of tools and opportunities, PD, changes of how we instruct the students. So over the past 5 years, we started a different model at Walsh. We partnered with Project Child back 4 years ago, and we departmentalized our school in grades 1 through 5. We have seen success. I think the writing, we spend 90 minutes a day in writing, and you saw that 1st and 5th grade, that does make a difference. Our teachers have become, they teach the same subjects all day to 3 different grade levels, and we have found that to be very helpful. We loop here at Walsh. That was part of our reform, so we loop. There's always an exception here or there, but generally the students have the same teachers for 3 years and then 2 years. We had several different opportunities to adjust our curriculum. Like I said, we were able to add math positions that fortunately we were able to keep one of those after, because we're no longer in the Commissioners Network. So we have a science lab. That was one of the things that came out of the Commissioners Network, where we have science as a special at Walsh. So K through 5 students receive science once a week in the lab on top of their instruction within the classroom with their teachers. So those are just some of the things that we have done. It's 5 years. We have a lot more to do, but we definitely have made some great improvements, and we're just going to keep working.
I appreciate that, because I know that the staff here has really embraced change, and because I know change is not easy, but I do believe that you care about the kids. It's all about the kids, and I see that here at Walsh, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Is there anybody who signed up to speak? We do have a public speaking portion to the agenda. I'm not sure if anybody had an opportunity to sign up. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? No. Seeing none, we will continue with the agenda. Next is Captain Maxwell and Darren Schwartz. Request approval to apply for the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security School Security Competitive Grant Program, Round 4.
Hi, good evening,
And
Board.
Louise Brown as well. Yes.
Yes, good
What
evening.
would we do without Louise, of course?
And we also have, I want to introduce Rosh Magfor, for those who do not know him.
Okay.
He's an accountant 3 in the school inspector's office, and he does so much more than just the accountant 3 position. He's been a great addition to the team, and had a pleasure working with him. Just to give a background, we've had about 2 weeks to work together to put this grant together. It's due on December 4th. We're coming forward to you tonight. Captain Maxwell has worked not only by himself, but also in conjunction with other members of the police department to do assessments of the buildings, even on the weekends, to help write this grant. And so I appreciate his efforts as well, stepping into the role as Mr. Herman has been ill.
Good evening. I just want to mention we also have with us tonight Chris Herman from the interim school inspector. Both Chris and Rosh have been instrumental in helping us access the buildings and working with Captain Maxwell to assess vulnerabilities and opportunities for security improvements. This grant is a grant from the state of Connecticut. The purpose of it is to improve security infrastructure in school buildings and school districts. The grant itself is awarded on a reimbursement basis and at a percentage rate assigned for the district. Our district rate, as you may know, is 79.29%. So the amount of a grant that we would receive would be 79.29% of the award for the total project. That means that there's a local match required of 20.71%, and that approximately 20% match. And in the case of this grant, while the project is still somewhat under development, we're estimating to be between $500,000 and $800,000 over a couple of years. This grant goes out to 2021. If we were fortunate enough to receive it, we would have until June of 2021 to both complete the work and fund the local portion of the match. The kinds of things that we've looked at, speaking generally, are additional radios, electronic locks, cameras and recorders, security film, vestibule improvements, security barriers, and video intercom systems. Can we answer any questions for you about that information?
I believe due to the nature of the security, we don't want to go into details in terms of our plan for security, which we do have to the state. But do anybody, I guess our biggest question is what are we looking for in terms of reimbursement till 2021? When would we have to have, how much are we looking at each year?
We're finalizing numbers right now so that as we get the quotes in and we look at exactly what we have, obviously working with Doreen about what she thinks we can do in terms of the matching portion. Right now, we're looking at anywhere possibly between 500,000 up to 800,000. Could be even lower based on the conversations that will ensue over the next week or so with her. But right now, that's what we're looking at. That was what the assessment gave us, and that what we put in our draft.
Okay, Commissioner Vanstone, and then Commissioner Watt. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you. For our portion of it, the 20% or so, did you say that we would not be responsible for that until the end as we're submitting in 2021?
No. Because this is a reimbursement basis grant, we actually have to pay for costs to the improvements and then seek our 79.29, approximately 80% from the state as a reimbursement.
So we front the 100%.
I'm sorry?
So we would front the 100%?
Yes.
And then in 2021, ask for,
No, we can ask for that all along throughout the project. So
Okay.
as we do work, we may request reimbursement. It doesn't have to wait until the end. But they are giving us till June 2021 to complete all of the work.
and just so I understand it, that 500, 800,000 roughly number we're talking about, that's our 20%? Or
Yes.
is that the total? Okay.
Correct, our portion.
Okay, and is this, do we know ballpark the time frame between us turning in a receipt and getting money back? I'm trying to wonder how much money we're going to have to float out there before we get any back.
Right. Well, let me tell you what we do know. We know that the bond commission has already approved the funds for this. So when the applications are turned in the first week of December, and they're reviewed at the state, they're hoping to give us a decision in approximately 90 days. So in March of 2018, we'll get a decision. I'm not sure if maybe Rosh can help us with, once we actually put in an invoice, when do we get a check back?
It's normally 30 days.
30 days?
Yeah. As we go with progress payment, it's normally 30 days to get the rate. It's about 30 days. I'm sorry, apologies, about 30 days progress payment.
Okay, so, and as we're working towards 2021, as we're laying out this money, despite the fact we're getting a bunch of it back, what do we believe our mechanism for paying this will be? Are we going to try to get this as a capital improvement budget? Are we paying this out of our general fund? Are we going to try to bond this money? Do we have any idea? We need a bigger table.
Sorry. I mean, currently, we're looking to anticipate putting that into our general fund as part of our budget process and including that amount that we would need for each year. It's about two years and a quarter. So once we get awarded this year, if there's possibly some of the smaller things that we can be able to accomplish, then we would be able to maybe match that, because we match it as we spend it.
Yep.
So if we can do some of the smaller projects in the current year and we feel comfortable enough, then we can match that in this year and then budget for it in the next 2 budget years.
So if we have an outlay, say that happens, and let's use the lower of the numbers, the 500,000, and let's pretend we have $375,000 over those 2 years, we would imagine that we would be able to find, 180 grand out of each year to pay for this? We wouldn't have to go into another budget?
That's our plan, yes. That's our plan through this budget process along, as we go through the process with you and the board and through Dr. Ruffin. This is kind of what we're deciding to do, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Owat.
So Doreen, stay there, because while I support what we're trying to do, the long and the short of it is we're paying 100% up front. So what kind of cash flow problem is that going to create? Because if we did something that was $1 million, we're going to pay the $1 million and wait to get back, what is it, 800,000. So what kind of cash flow issue is that going to create for you?
Well, it's going to go into, we're setting up a grant. It goes into the fund balance. Like Rosh said, as we do the project, we get that turnaround, we'll have our match available, although we don't have to match it, but it's part of a separate grant that we set up. So it'll be part of fund balance.
Let me just clarify something. So my confusion perhaps is, we're going to do a project. We incur a cost.
Yeah.
The cost of the project was $1 million. We have to submit a paid bill for the $1 million to get back our percentage.
Right, that's correct.
So my question is, how is that $1 million outlay, which really only 200,000 of it is budgeted on an 80-20 split? Where are we getting the other 800,000 from as a float until we get it back?
Right.
Yeah, it's part of the city's whole fund, so it would be part of the city's helping where we put the funds into this grant.
So it's going to come from the city?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's part of the entire, where all of our grant funds are tied into this one fund balance.
Okay.
So.
I just want to make sure we're not in a position where we get caught and they didn't approve an invoice and now we're waiting for significant reimbursement and we have other expenses that we're not able to meet because we're waiting for that check back.
Right. Well, I mean, this would be round 4, because, I mean, we've been doing this now for 3 years and the other grants, the same, handling it the same way. Well, they were 2 point, there was about 2.6 million, I think it was.
And this is going to be about 3.4.
If we're awarded that. Yeah, this is just the application. It does not mean that we're going to get funded for all of the schools, or that we're going to receive the full 3.6 million.
Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you.
Okay, so we've had a positive experience as they're asking from the state for reimbursement thus far for the other grants?
Yeah, we haven't had any issues.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty much run smoothly.
Okay.
We've had over, as we said, we had over 2 years for each project, for each grant for the projects.
Okay.
So round 1, we've had round 2, we're in round 3, and round 4.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all for coming this evening. Appreciate your expertise. Thank you. Next is Will Shuda. No, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Harmon. I'm sorry, number 3. Mr. Harmon, request approval of the EDO 49F for the West Side Middle School roof project.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
All right, yeah, good evening. Anyways, what this is about is the west side roof. We were
Yes.
closing it out.
He's going.
We were closing it out, so
Point of
basically,
clarification, the document in the packet is blank. There's nothing. Item number 3 is a blank sheet of paper. So do you have something that we can look at, or maybe you can send it as a follow-up before the meeting?
you do?
We have a letter there from the architect.
Must have scanned incorrectly.
Yeah, we just have a letter from the architect closing the project, accepting the project as complete.
Because it just, I'll show you, but this is what it is. Okay.
Is it dead?
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Carrie will email it
Yeah,
out.
if you can keep going, she can
Okay,
send it, but-
thank you. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so anyways, yes, we changed the roof. We went with EPDM roof, which is a rubber roof. It's got a 30-year warranty on it. Just so you guys know, it was started under Shannon and Bob and finished under Shannon and Bob. Like I said, we're just trying to close it out right now. The project with the architect's fees and everything else was 1.742, just so you guys know. What else? We've had, from the very beginning, we've had good luck with the roofer. We had a couple issues at first, showed up every time. There was 3 issues, and within probably, I would say, 12 hours, he showed right up, and they took care of it. So that was actually a good project because we have a good roofer out of the deal.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? It seems pretty pro forma.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Kathy, I don't know, this came under the Good Jobs? This
Yes,
roof project?
yes, it did.
Came under the Good Jobs ordinance?
Yes.
It was done a while ago, though. It was done last summer.
2017.
It's an older project.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Will Shuda, number 4, report enrollment as of October 1st, 2018.
Good evening, Commissioners. In front of you, you have the October 1st EDO 6 report that we do annually. A few years ago, we decided to present this to you guys as moving forward. So the current year enrollment on October 1st was 18,729. Last year's was 18,959, of a decrease in enrollment of 230 from this year from last year. We are up about another 60 from the October 1st count, so it's a moving target. I mean, as far as where our enrollment numbers go, they're continuously moving. We could see an impact, an increase in students over the years. It over the next couple weeks or months, depends. So, I went back and I did a 5-year analysis for Dr. Ruffin, and I looked at our enrollment growth over the past 5 years. We're up 107 kids over those 5 years. So we're kind of flatlined over those 5 years. You'll see some increases, some decreases. This is the largest decrease we've seen since 2009. That year we lost 176 from the year prior on October 1st, but then we had a nice increase from there. So, it's really hard to gauge these numbers, but it's pretty much what the numbers are right now.
So as far as that date is concerned, will that be what the state determines our reimbursement for ECS?
Correct.
Okay. And does that put us at a disadvantage with the numbers down, or it's
I just actually asked Doreen that, and she said not for this year's budget.
not for the,
This year's budget. It could impact future budgets, but it also depends on what the governor, I mean, you want budget?
Well, student enrollment is always a part of the formula for ECS. So, I mean, in the future, I mean, us being down maybe 200 students, I'm not saying that it will affect this budget because it's already set, but it could affect future budgets going based on the formula.
okay. And are you seeing any particular grades that have a bump or a lesser? I think, if you don't have that now, we could. You do, all right.
I looked at the grades levels, and the biggest numbers we saw was the grade 3, a decrease of 80 students from last year. Grade 5 was a decrease of 62. Grade 9 was a decrease of 50, and grade 11 a decrease of 69. Those are the major drivers.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the
Good night.
information. Okay, number 5, Melissa Baldwin, report on special education. Our favorite topic.
I know it is. Good evening, Commissioners, President Brown, Dr. Ruffin. My name is Melissa Baldwin, Director of Special Education.
Thank you.
Elaine Skoronsky, coordinator of the IDEA grant.
I'll wait for Carrie to hand out a couple of changes. The first change you will see is our organizational chart for the department. Dr. Ruffin had asked me to include this in this presentation. I could send a larger copy if anybody can't read it. Okay. On the next page, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act expenditures. I've been asked this a number of times about where the grant money for IDEA is spent. Will be going into 18-20, so there's a one-year overlap every single year. The grant amount is approximately $5.4 million. The number of students serviced are all of our special education students in the district, at Brass City Charter School, and also the non-public schools, and this includes the out-of-district placement students as well. And when I say service, I don't mean the entire services, I mean the services that we provide. The expenditures overview, our total grant, as I said, is $5.4 million. $3,724,000 go to employee salaries and benefits. It pays for 13 special education teachers, 13 behavior therapists, 1 speech and language therapist, a speech assistant, 1 preschool transition coordinator, 2 special education supervisors, 1 grant manager and office manager, 4 secretaries, 1 database manager, and 1 accountant. It also pays for autism pre-K and Bucks Hill Annex, the ABA therapists, and the board-certified behavior analyst through Easter Seals, and 1 additional board-certified behavior analyst for Crosby, Wallace, and Generali. The supplemental services include instruction and administrative supplies, evaluation and testing materials, assistive technology, equipment and repairs, the web-based IEP system, supplies to supplement reading program, professional development, and parent and student activities, which comes to $458,000. I just wanted to go over briefly our autism programs, Generali, Wallace, and Crosby. Generali currently has 33 students, 3 teachers, 1 substitute teacher, 20 ABA therapists, 1 paraprofessional, and a board-certified behavior therapist 2 days a week. At Wallace, there are 17 students, 1 teacher, 6 ABA therapists, 2 registered behavior technicians through Constellation, and a BCBA 1.5 days a week. And lastly, at Crosby, there are 13 students, 1 teacher, 8 ABA therapists, and a BCBA 1.5 days a week. We looked at some autism program audit options to have somebody come in and specifically look at Generali and possibly Wallace Crosby to give us a systematic review of the special education programs based on ABA methodology. When I spoke to Dr. Hoko down at ACES, the program, the audit that they do takes 3 to 5 weeks. They cannot do it until March, and it would cost almost $10,000, somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000. I had spoken to a number of my colleagues, and we decided to put together a team in district that has a great deal of expertise in the area of autism and working with young children. So we're going to start that process next week. It'll include multiple administrators with expertise in the area of autism and district board certified behavior analyst. And we are going to start from there and go forward, making recommendations, supporting that program, and making sure that they are on the right track. So, students in special education. We currently have approximately 15,492 regular education students enrolled. This is from our database. Students receiving special education services in Waterbury and out-of-district placements is 3,576. So we currently have 18.75% of Waterbury Public School students receiving special education services under IDEA. Other schools that receive funds under IDEA are non-public students in special education. Those are our Catholic schools, our Catholic Academy, St. Pete's, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and Brass City Charter School students. There are 25 of them that receive special ed services. The next one is our current out-of-district placements. You've seen this slide before. I just updated it to encompass what's going on this year. We currently have 69 students in Waterbury Board of Education placements, and we have 2 court-placed students. DCF has decreased their number of placed students from 20 to 9, so overall we have less out-of-district students placed, but we have a couple more from the end of June last year. Just wanted to give you an update on State Street. Currently have 109 students. 24 students transferred from Enlightenment to State Street at the beginning of the school year. We opened a TLC classroom for our little guys. They're 4 and 5 years old. There's 5 students in the class right now. We have 4 elementary classrooms, 4 middle school classrooms, 5 high school, and 1 alternative classroom for students who are catching up on their credits, Ingenuity, and kind of like a alternate to homebound services. Instead of being on homebound, they come there and get their credits through State Street. It's a separate classroom. It's an increase from last year. We had 87 students at the end of June of 2018, 2 elementary classrooms, 2 middle school classrooms, and 4 high school classrooms. From the beginning of the school year, we've had 15 students placed at State Street from out-of-district placements, including Solnit and detention. Solnit is a DCF placement. And 8 students have returned to their district schools from State Street, like Crosby, Wallace, Kennedy, Westside, Wilby, North End. I just put in there their daily attendance. You can just read through it, but they're currently at a 78% attendance rate, and it went up 3% from the same time last year. That's it. Questions?
Commissioners, any questions? This is a lot of information. I really appreciate it because it's important information. And just so I understand, we're going to do an in-house audit with our own experts instead of hiring ACEs? Or
That's
we're gonna
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And do we have, is there a template that you're looking at? I mean, do they have kind of the only word I can think of is a template that you look at, kind of a checklist, what we should have, what's going on?
I'm working with Noreen Buckley, and they have done numerous focus walks for regular education classrooms, so we're going to start from there, and I'm meeting with our BCBA, who will also have a template, and we're going to put them together and look at the program as a whole, not just social, emotional behavior, but we're also going to look at the academics that are going on in the classroom program.
Okay. Commissioner Stango.
Thank you. Melissa, I'm looking at, listening to you and looking at the printout and all of that. I have just a question. If you can briefly tell, just for reviewing, the difference between, in the autism program, the BCBA, which is board certified, the ABA therapist, and then there's another one called the registered behavioral technician. As far as their training, and perhaps their education, and perhaps their salary. What's the difference with those three?
So a board-certified behavior analyst is at the top. They are licensed through the state of Connecticut. We currently have 3 of them that support the district. So they oversee autism programs and the personnel that work in those programs. The next level is the registered behavior technician. They're also registered through the state. They have to be, through the board, they have to be supervised by a board-certified behavior analyst for a certain number of hours every single month. And an ABA therapist is a Waterbury-trained staff member who works with children with autism. The difference in salaries, BCBAs start anywhere from approximately $80,000 to $200,000 a year. And that's not us, but that's the general salary. We have somebody in district who makes approximately $160,000, and then we have 2 others who are much less experienced who make significantly less than that, probably around $110,000 a year. Our RBTs, the RBTs are currently paid about $38.50 an hour. And the ABA therapists make between $50,000 and $60,000 a year.
Okay. So the registered behavioral technicians are not certified staff. They're not.
No.
Right. No. And the ABA therapists are neither are those.
Correct.
Right. How about the BCBA?
The BCBA has to go through, they have to have a bachelor's degree, and then they have to go back and have their master's degree as well in behavior therapy. They also have to have a test. It's a state test, or it's a board test, and they also have to do a number of hours. It is a nationwide test. They also have a certain number of contact hours with children in order to become board-certified behavior analysts.
So, I know that we employ, and we also, through Constellation, use the ABAs from them.
The RBTs.
Which ones?
The registered behavior technicians come from Constellation.
Okay, and how about the ones that we were just speaking about last year, going private with that?
So that's the registered behavior technicians.
Oh, okay.
They are registered through the board, the board of, the behavior analyst board, thank you. So the behavior analyst board oversees both the BCBAs and the registered behavior technicians.
So who's on our payroll, particularly just to us?
The ABA therapists.
Okay.
We employ approximately 37 of them right now.
Okay. There's quite a lot to that. Got it.
And you can call me anytime.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As I said, it's a lot of information, which we're really glad to get. And maybe there will be further questions from members.
Of course.
Okay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you. I'll be back.
Number 6, Linda. Request approval of a submission of the 2018-2020 consolidated 2-year federal grant application. I'm assuming this is our McKinney-Vento?
It's part of it. It's within here.
Okay.
I think Louise Brown was here a couple of weeks ago.
That's
with the
right, she did that
McKinney-Vento.
one. Okay,
Right.
yep.
Good evening. This is the consolidated application for 2018-2020, and it includes Title I, Title IIA, and Title IV this year. What's different this year for Title I is that although there's less money here, we last year had an increase and we put money in for the summer school because we didn't have our state grant. If we remember last year, our state grant was late being approved, so we had put money in for the state grant. So now that there's a decrease in Title I, we don't really have an impact in our grant because we had put money in for something that we didn't really have to use. So it's really not impacting us. What's different in this year's Title I is we're putting in money for the English and Language Arts curriculum. We're putting in money for community forums for the Portrait of a Graduate. And on the private school side, they're having third-party providers. For Title IIA, there's a decrease in the funding. Last year, we put additional money in for professional development because most of it comes out of Title I. And we know this grant is going to decrease each year, so we're prepared for what may not be there. So this year there'll be less money for PD, but we usually use that as our surplus. So we won't have an impact on that as much. For the Title IV, which as you can see has a huge increase of over $600,000, this is the first year they've fully funded the grant. It's a 2-year grant. And we've had the opportunity to help public schools, private schools, and communities with such things as the well-rounded education piece will include a lot of field trips. A lot of times robotics in the high schools have to do a lot of fundraisers to get the students to a lot of these activities, and this way they can just get the support from this grant. There's some community projects with leadership programs and helping communities with some technology. Every school will be able to have their PBS rewards again, where there's celebrations and their rewards for students, where that was taken out of the Title IIA grant, which is in the middle, but now it's back into the bottom grant. So we were able to support all the things that were minimized about a year or two ago. Any questions?
Okay. I guess as we move forward, I will be looking to make sure that all of these activities are aligned to our strategic plan for the district, so that we make sure that all of these things are building towards the outcomes we want for the Portrait of a Graduate and for our district improvement plan. So I think that's something we'll be looking at. Definitely. Okay, thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Are you up any other time?
No.
No? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, next we have 7 and 8, Melissa and Elaine.
Back. Melissa Baldwin, Director of Special Education.
Elaine Skronsky, IDA Coordinator.
I respectfully request that the contract submitted between the City of Waterbury and Connecticut Institute for the Blind, Oak Hill, be approved. The Waterbury School District has placed one student at the Institute for the Blind, Oak Hill School, a school for students with disabilities. Contract with Connecticut Institute for the Blind runs from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021, with a 2-year option to extend the contract. The yearly amount of the contract is up to $174,464. The total amount of the contract for 3 years is up to $523,392 and is paid for by the general funds. A tax clearance has been obtained, and I appreciate your consideration. This is an important matter.
Any questions? Commissioner Van Stone.
Potentially, how many students would this service?
One.
If another blind child needed these services, we would need to amend this, or would this cover a potential second child?
We would need to amend it at some point in the future if the other student stays there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Might as well just stay there for number 8. Request approval of an agreement with Hope Academy of Milford, Inc.
The contract with Hope Academy, a school for students with disabilities, runs for 1 year, from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. The yearly amount of the contract is up to $96,500 and is paid for by general fund. A tax clearance has been received, and I appreciate your consideration.
I think, now how many students will this?
It's one.
Just one? And I noticed the dates, it was effective July, and we're now into November, so,
And we haven't paid a bill yet.
okay, all right. Has the student been there?
Yes. It was, both cases were under the guidance of Corporation Counsel and legal.
So these were part of an agreement? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's see. Number 9.
Last, I respectfully request the amendment to the contract submitted between the City of Waterbury and Attlebrook be approved. The Waterbury School District has placed students at Attlebrook, which operates a school for students with disabilities, and had a contract completed with Waterbury in 2016. The amendment is necessary to increase the total amount of the contract by $335,000 to cover increased tuition costs for additional students. The amendment increases the total amount of the contract to $1,013,135 from $678,132 in the current contract. The contract term remains the same from July 1st through June 30th, 2019, and is paid for by general funds.
And this is the same deal, was through a negotiated settlement?
No.
Oh.
This was an increase in the number of students that have been placed at the school.
Okay. And that brings the total to how many?
$1,013,135 over 3 years.
And how many students?
I wrote it down. Over the course of the contract, we've had 9 students there.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 10, Darren Schwartz. And team, our leadership team is out in force tonight. And this is a report on the SAT AP. You need more chairs? Feel free. More microphones?
How are you? Hi. Good evening again, Board. Just want to thank the administrators for coming tonight. Obviously, we take the SAT and AP exam results seriously, as do the principals and assistant principals who could be here tonight. They're here to answer any questions at the end of the presentation if you have any. And I want to thank Tara as well for coming through the data as she usually does to put something together for the board. That's a lot of data. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions by the end of it, and we're here to answer any inquiry you have. I'll start off with handing it over to Tara.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we're going to go through the Connecticut SAT and AP exam results. You should have received it in your packet, and we'll go slide by slide and, of course, answer any questions at the very end. This is a slide we normally put up during our presentation of student assessment results, just to remind you of what we're seeing on these tests and how students are being judged. Next slide gives you some SAT background. I really just wanted to point out the differences between the Connecticut SAT Day, which we do here in the spring. It is different from how students are assessed than if they were to take the SAT on a Saturday session. So for example, our students for Connecticut SAT Day do not participate in the essay, and it was actually completed during the school day last spring. Student scores are reported on 4 levels, so the target of interest is level 3. We are looking to have students that meet the achievement level. Our next slide shows the percentage of students who have met or exceeded the achievement level over the last 3 years with the redesigned Connecticut SAT Day in Waterbury. On the top you see math, and on the bottom you see ELA literacy. After that, we have our comparison to our peer group, our DERG-I participants. You can see here with this one how participation has played out in the districts. Remember that 95% participation is required of all districts in the state, and you could see here how Waterbury fared in each of the subject areas, math on the top and ELA literacy on the bottom in terms of participation rates. Next, we have the actual scores for our peer comparison. This is the percentage of students meeting or exceeding the achievement level, again, that level 3 or higher. But this is ranked by the change from the prior year. So we're looking to see if districts had improvement from the prior year. I would like to point out when looking at these results here in the final column change from the prior year, the state of Connecticut did have a 3 percentage point decline in ELA results and a 1 percentage point decline in math results. Next up, you see the same graphic that we just showed you on the prior page for our peer comparison, but you see each of the schools here in Waterbury along with the district average. So you see in the column on the right the change from the prior year. Moving on from SAT, we have our AP exam background. There are 38 AP courses, but not all of them are offered in Waterbury, so we're going to go through the ones that are offered here in Waterbury. AP courses have a different way of reporting their exam scores. This is scored on a range from 1 to 5, and any students who get a 3 or higher typically get college credit. So level 3 is the area of interest for AP exams. These also were taken during the school day last spring. On the top in this next table, we have the AP exam results by school for the last several years. So you can see on the right-hand side is where we see 2017, 2018. And the far right column represents the percentage of students who met that level 3 or higher on their AP exams. Now we have students who participate in multiple exams, which is why we show you the number of AP students and the number of AP exams, because we have students who take multiple exams. At the bottom, we summarize the one-year change, so that's comparing 2017, 2018 to the year before, 2016, 2017. Then we have a 2-year change, which compares 2017, 2018 back to 2015, 2016. And then we have a 3-year change, so again, we're comparing 2017, 2018 back to 2014, 2015. And you could see the change over time in the highlighted columns. The next slide shows you all of the AP exam subjects that students took last year in Waterbury. So again, we don't have all of the 38 exams offered here in Waterbury, but here's the list of what we did offer. And I just want to draw your attention to one of the highest performing subjects at the very bottom of the table, Spanish language and culture, where 84.4% of students received a score level 3 or higher. Now, it seems that the last slide, probably the best slide, was left out of your packet, so you may have to look over here at the slide on the screen. We do have students who receive AP exam awards. So these are called AP Scholar Awards, and they recognize high-achieving students on their AP exams. So there's 3 different divisions. There's an AP Scholar, So these are students who have scores of 3 or higher, not 1, not 2, but 3 or more AP exams. Then we have an AP Scholar with honor, so their average score is at least a 3.25 in all their exams taken. And again, they've earned a score of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these AP exams. And then we have AP Scholar with distinction, average score of at least 3.5 on all their exams, and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. These are no small feats by any means. So if you look at the very bottom, in Waterbury, we had 41 AP Scholars across the district. You can see the breakdown at each of the schools, how many students they had, into which categories they fell. So a total of 41 AP Scholars for the city of Waterbury.
So obviously, as we look forward, and we'll hear from the assistant principals and principals, I'm sure, in terms of the questions and answers. But as we look forward, the question is so what? What do we do? Because right now, the SAT scores, specifically in ELA, as you could see, a major drop. AP exams up and down based on the school. And so it comes back to 3 core things, really: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Curriculum and assessment from the central office, making sure that that's relevant. Right now, we've come before you and have put forth a very comprehensive elementary curriculum. It is pretty much at a place where it needs to be, and I can say that with 100% confidence. We've come to you with middle school, and middle school it has included ELA for a brand new curriculum this year, and science as well. Looking to include social studies, possibly also through different grant funding. But high school, and talking with the principals, it's a concern, and you can see that through the scores. You saw the scores at the elementary earlier last month. The scores are progressing. They're moving up. They're changing. ELA was also a little bit slower based on the fact that we haven't had a true Connecticut core-aligned curriculum in the past. And so when it comes down to curriculum and assessment, that's a central office function. That needs to occur. Many conversations with Dr. Ruffin about that, and we're looking forward to the new assistant superintendent coming in. And when it comes to instruction and the rigor of the classrooms, and I've heard that from multiple people, and I was just talking to Mr. Johnson at Kennedy, for students accessing AP, for students being able to, we have open enrollment, but are they ready for it? And the rigor starting, not only just in 9th grade, but all the way down to 6th grade, and making sure the rigor is happening every single classroom, every single day, is an administrative function within the schools. And that's where a major focus needs to shift in the not just the high schools, but also the middle schools as well. There are major changes happening to the AP exam and the offerings that are going out for our students and for our teachers for 2019 and 20. I was able to attend an AP mini conference this week at the University of Hartford with several other districts. Every AP course will have the course at a glance with units and topics and suggested pacing for the first time, really laid out there for every single coursework. But with that will also become teacher resource and instruction. So talking about a common resource and instructional bank for teachers across the state of Connecticut and anyone that can access the College Board for the first time. It would also deliver for students personal progress checks as they go through the programs. Individualized to each student. They'll have an individual account that they could check their progress on as they go through an AP course. There'll be a question bank with AP-aligned questions with over 15,000 for the first time. A lot of the feedback that the College Board had was teachers not having access to a valid question bank for students as they teach the course. And then important for us is a performance dashboard. So the central office, for example, the assistant superintendent, the chief academic officer, and anyone else at central office and the administrative staff can actually monitor by student, by class, how they're doing and progressing through the AP course with those AP-aligned questions. and some streamlined ordering for students as well. So we're looking forward to those changes with the College Board. And at this point, I'll either turn it over to the principals if they want to add something on about specifically what they're doing through their school improvement plans to address the gaps in the SATs and APs, if you'd so like to speak.
Why do I get the mic? I'm the new guy.
Principal, you're it, I guess.
First and foremost, our plan is to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction. What we've seen is that we have a very passive learning environment in our classrooms, and we're trying to make it more active. Everyone knows we have 3 types of engagement. We have student-to-student engagement, student-to-content engagement, and student-to-teacher engagement. We do see a lot of student-to-teacher engagement. We are really lacking in our student-to-student engagement and our student-to-the actual content engagement. So that's what we're working on now. How we're monitoring that is through our instructional round protocol. At the beginning of this year, we started instructional rounds where we were going into every classroom as an administrative team and watching and seeing what our actual instruction that was going on in the classroom. After getting a sample of that, we've actually made a focus for our teachers so they know when we walk into the classroom actually what we're looking for and what we want from them. Moving forward, after that, we're going to actually start to bring teachers in, to involve our teachers in our instructional rounds. Because why that's important is we're taking this from the medical field, and the best way to learn is to actually observe who somebody else that's doing it correctly. So we're going to bring our teachers into the instructional rounds to see the active classrooms that we're developing so they can learn from other teachers. So that's the first thing we're going to do.
I would echo what Mr. Schwartz said regarding increasing the number of students taking AP courses and their performance on those AP tests. What we really need to do is we need to pay close attention to what we are doing in the years leading up to prior to the actual taking of the AP course. Right from middle school on through the first couple of years of high school. The majority of AP courses are offered to students in their junior and senior year. There might be 1 or 2 here that a sophomore may take, but it's really that junior and senior year. If we want students to perform better on the AP test, and we want more students to take those AP tests, at Kennedy we have, and I know this is similar to most of the other schools, it's open enrollment. It's not like you have to have a certain grade or you have to score a certain score on a test in order to get into an AP course. If students want the challenge of taking an AP course, they can. Where we can do a better job is in preparing them prior to that point so that they'll be successful and they'll want to sign up for those AP courses. That has to be our focus going forward if we want to increase both the numbers of students taking the AP courses and how well they do once they're in those courses.
Over at Crosby, I'd like to echo, what Mr. Johnson and Mr. Edwards have said as well. What we're seeing from our students, I know this presentation is about AP scores, but there's a genuine interest in UConn classes as well. The general consensus from students is that it's better to serve them moving forward. So we've seen some declines in the number of test takers that we've had, but I think that's reflected in some of the extra UConn classes that we've been offering. We've begun this year really taking a close look as administrators at the teachers' lesson plans, giving them weekly feedback, talking about questioning assessment techniques. We want to make sure that the assessments and feedback to the students is authentic and preparing them. And then, regarding the SATs, I know we talked a little about AP scores, but regarding the SATs, over at Crosby, we've significantly invested in the calculators over this past summer into the school year, and trying to give professional development, ongoing professional development to our math staff. Each teacher in the math department received a new set, 30 TI-84 CE pluses, color graphing calculators. We're working very diligently to ensure that kids are prepared and know how to use those things on the standardized tests. So I'm hoping I'm going to see some results with that moving forward.
So at WAMS, we are a smaller, excuse me, a smaller high school, but we do offer the AP courses. We are fortunate that we are able to offer an AP course as low as our freshman class in our history department. We also have after-school AP that one of our teachers stays and works with the students to prepare them even more for the test. And we have an AP club that was started a couple of years ago too, for science, that he works with the students for that. This year is the first time too that we've had an AP Spanish class that we're able to offer for our seniors. So we will be adding to the number of for Spanish for AP. Also this year, this freshman class, last year I started sort of a freshman academy where we have our students in 8th grade taking Algebra 1 and Physical Science, so that they are starting in the 9th grade with the honors biology, and they're taking honors, Algebra 2 honors and geometry honors at the same time, so that hopefully by the time they get to their senior year, we can also start offering them AP Stats. So they'll take AP Calc and AP Stats. We also looked at our SAT scores. We compared what their PSATs over the years, and to show growth where we needed to strengthen our program. And we will also be doing from January until they take the SATs again. We'll be offering it after school for 20 days for SAT through the Khan Academy.
Thank you. And our Waterbury
evening.
Career Academy.
So we pretty much have a blend of everything that we do that is similar in each school. We do have our SAT prep class that we run for our juniors, and we alternate between the ELA and the math by marking period, so the students get at least close to 3 marking periods in of the SAT prep prior to the spring assessment. We do have our morning lab. We have our morning lab. In the morning, students are able to come in and work with our math and English teachers with SAT or their curriculum as well, their work, their daily workload. But as Mr. Johnson said, getting them ready in middle school is imperative. That is not too early. We need them when you really only have a couple of years before that spring assessment. There's really, when you try to fit into curriculum, starting in the middle schools is imperative to get started. You know, as Mr. Balsamo said about the UConn classes and the AP classes, a lot of students do move towards the ECE UConn class because there isn't that external exam. But the colleges do like to see the AP on their transcripts. That's where they really get a lot more for their high school workload. So we do try to encourage students to take according to their PSAT scores, do try to get them into an AP rather than a UConn ECE class. We do recommend that for the students. We also noticed this past spring when, with these scores, if I may, that we had that unfortunate snow day that took away from the scheduled SAT that we had, and it was moved 2 weeks later. What we had done is we had a 20-day boot camp, if you will, where we had students working with the ELA and math teachers for the SAT. Then the snow day came, so the scheduled SAT day didn't take place. Then you had the week vacation, spring vacation in April, and then the students came back. We had 1 day, and then they took the assessment. So while our participation was good, we do think that that did adversely affect some of the students' scores. And many districts in the state were that way, but that was one of the unfortunate circumstances this past year.
Just wanted to add one more thing that I thought of, I failed to mention. Over at Crosby, we have come up with a schedule bi-weekly where all students get into Khan Academy, and they link their SAT scores, their PSAT scores, right down to PSAT, 9, 10. And they're getting in computer labs, using the laptops in these classes to prepare themselves. So we're trying to make an attempt to start at an earlier age. And our interventionist has done a tremendous job with linking College Board accounts with Khan Academy accounts and trying to get the students personalized instruction.
Commissioner Hernandez.
I think, Mr. Johnston, you stated that the students know that it's open enrollment. Are you sure they know, or are you just assuming that that they know? Because I know a lot of kids had said to me, well, I think it's only for those kids that are in SOAR or things like the other programs. So I want to know if all the schools or all the high schools let their students know that to take an AP course is an open enrollment thing. Anyone can do it. And if so, if they do know that, how is it presented to them? Guidance counselor, teachers, who lets them know that this is open to any student?
Well, I'll speak for Kennedy, although it's probably common in some of the other schools, and I'm sure they'll chime in. Students are informed by both the teachers and their guidance counselors, maybe even more so by the guidance counselors, that AP courses are open to everyone. In addition to that, that'll occur particularly with the guidance counselors when they meet with their guidance counselors for scheduling purposes. There's a particular piece of data that we're able to use. It's called AP Potential. It's a report that's issued by the College Board as a result of students' scores on the PSAT. And what it does is it identifies how students did on particular aspects of the PSAT and how that relates to certain AP courses. So we'll get a report that will indicate that a particular student has shown particular ability to be successful in AP Calculus or AP Psychology or AP English Lit. And so the usefulness of that particular report is we're able to take a look at it, and we're able to, it kind of helps us catch students that might otherwise slip through the cracks. You know, a student who, for whatever reason, maybe there was no one really advocating for that student to take an AP course. So, holy cow, and you call, and what the guidance counselors do is they use that. They call the student in, and they're able to say, hey, listen, you know, we actually get this report from the College Board. And according to what you did on the PSATs, they think that you'd be, you know, successful in such and such a course. Sometimes that's the kind of push that allows the student to say, oh, hey, yeah, definitely, you know, and it gives them a boost of confidence to also sign up for that course. So there is that piece of data that we do use. We've been using for several years now. It's called AP Potential.
Commissioner Awad.
I'm wondering, please, if we could be forwarded the information for the district regarding the students that achieve level 1 and level 2 on the SATs, so that we can compare that to those that are at level 3, and anybody that did better than that, because the break here is you gave us everything at 3. I'd like to see the 1 and 2s. I think that's important so we can gauge growth next year. Secondly, I had a question, actually one is a comment. Studio art in Italian, we had one student in each take the exam. Please tell me there wasn't one student in the class.
Although they weren't my particular students, I know from previous experience, you can take, students are allowed to take an AP test even if they have not taken the AP course. Okay. So you can have a student who maybe is in an Italian 4, which isn't an AP class, but they're very skilled at Italian, they work with the teacher a little bit extra, and because they want to take the AP test.
Okay.
That
So
can happen.
That doesn't make me worry that we had a class for one kid. But what really concerns me is the low scores for the kids in the biologies, the chemistries, and the statistics, where we had a significant number of kids take this. In chemistry, nobody got above a 3. So is that indicative of, as you said, our general chemistry program? Is that indicative of the teacher's ability to teach the content? Or is that indicative of the student not grasping the content at an AP level? Those, math and science is where we're going. And those scores, I mean, statistics, and again, I'm just wondering, is it, where do we see the gap that we had kids performing so low on those exams?
Chemistry, I'm a little bit at a loss just because we haven't had a student take the AP chemistry at Kennedy for a couple of years. In biology, students do verbalize that that is a particularly tough course. Where I see a lot of it is in statistics, because we do have a rather large number of students taking the stats course, but not necessarily getting the results on the AP test. There's a little caveat there. That course is offered as both an AP course and a UConn course. So the students are getting the UConn credit. So what happens is, towards the end of the year, they know they're doing pretty well. They're going to earn the UConn credit. They have college credit coming. The test isn't all that necessarily important. So there's a little bit less motivation on that particular test at Kennedy, because they kind of know they've already got that college credit coming to them from UConn. Do they really need that score on the test? I don't know if that explains it entirely, but that there's a little bit of that going on.
So are they enrolled in both classes, or the stats class gives them the opportunity to take an AP exam as well as the UConn credit?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's one class that gives
one
dual
class.
opportunity. So I guess, again, my concern goes back to the math and the science classes, environment, all of them. I mean, I guess the question is, a teacher that's teaching AP, are they given additional teaching coaching before they are allowed to teach an AP class?
Prior to teaching an AP course, teachers have to attend, it's usually a week-long course over the summer. Most of our teachers attend these courses at Taft. So before you can teach a particular AP course, you have to go for that training, that week-long training in the summer.
So they are at least geared towards what that content delivery needs to be for the student to be successful. Okay.
No, you're good.
I can ask.
And at that conference, there were several districts, and I can't wait for Dr. Epperson to be here, because there were several districts that talked about how not just AP teachers go to that course, but several other teachers that may not be taking the AP, but taking the classes that lead up to the AP, take that course so they have a better understanding of the rigor involved leading up to it, where, again, going back to curriculum, instruction, assessment, I think is a major issue. So to your point, let's just be candid about it. If you have 0% of students passing chemistry, there has to be an issue in those 3 areas.
Right.
So as you know, we are updating chemistry, waiting for CREC to finish that curriculum. Curriculum and assessments will be updated by the end of the year. But again, going back to the instructional piece, and what is the rigor that's happening in those chemistry courses, we're having 0% pass. That you don't have to look much farther than those 3 areas. So I think, yes, the general science leading up to it, teachers that don't necessarily take AP, we should be pushing for them to to go to Taft, take these 5-day courses, because it will only benefit them as they teach the students as they move up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? Commissioner Stango and then Commissioner Van Stone.
Thank you. Just one quick question. I'm looking at as we already mentioned, like the chemistry AP, and you had 27 students who took that exam. Is that correct? Is that the way I read that, or yes? Okay. Now, so none of them did well on the AP exam, but what about the grade on the report card? How are they graded in that class, aside from the AP?
The AP exam doesn't bear the weight on the grades. The grades set, obviously the calculations are set through the board policy as well, but the AP exam doesn't bear the weight on the report card.
So on the report card, they receive a grade?
They receive a grade, yes.
A grade for their performance in the class.
Correct.
Feasibly, someone could have gotten a 90 on that grade for that
Yeah.
class, but fail the AP
Yes.
test? Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Van Stone.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you. Going through this in order of slides, the participation rate is tremendous. I imagine that is because it's free. Is that something that's going to be continuing in the district, God willing?
Yes, we did get that announcement that students will be supported in that area, as well as for the rest of the DERGs that you see there. It is free in those districts as well. I do think our counselors and administrative staff do a great job of getting students to participate, as you can see.
Perfect. And when talking about SATs, at least in the world I used to come from, you always talked about a number of an 800, a 600, 1,000. Do we know what we can equate a 3 level to on these? Is that a 500, a 600? Just so in my head I can know kind of what our kids are getting as far
Yeah,
as...
I'm remembering off the top of my head, I could be off by about 10 points, but I believe it's 480 for the ELA and 530 for the math, or it's reversed. Like
Okay.
480, 530. It is out of the same scale, 200 to 800, though.
So to get a 3 combined, you're getting 1,000 or so on. Okay.
Is that how AP is scored?
SAT.
Oh, SAT, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the AP. Thank you.
I haven't gotten AP. Okay, so that at least helps me when I'm looking at these. Obviously, we're not excited about a number of these things, in especially some of the trends. One of the things that struck me, and I think, Carrie, it was you who said it, the idea of a passive classroom. I have a senior in high school myself. If I'm passive in anything I do with him, I might as well not be in the room. So that is something, one, I'm glad you've identified it, because that's obviously the first step to correcting anything. And if that is something that is pervasive throughout the district, we need to change that quickly, because none of these numbers will change as long as we have passive classrooms. I like the idea of rounds. You know, I come from a medical world. We do rounds. We do peer review. It's important for staff to hear not only from the bosses, but from peers. And I think that is something that's important, to employ those best practices and make sure that, you know, they're hearing potential remedies for things that they might be struggling with in the classroom from not only administration, but from peers. So I'm glad you are doing that. I would imagine that through these rounds, these are some things that would also be taken into consideration when you're doing annual evaluations. Anybody? No?
Huh? Yeah, get out my way. The instructional round protocol is not evaluative. Why it's not evaluative is because we want it to be a safe place. We want teachers to actually come in and actually understand that we are actually trying to help them better their practice. Okay, lots of times when we come in and we're just evaluative, they think that we're trying to get them and we're trying to fire them. That's not what we're trying to do with my instructional round protocol. What that does is to make a safe place and let them know that whenever the feedback is, it's about making their practice better so our students can actually have a better opportunity. So right now, they're not connected to our evaluation. Our evaluation is done very separate of that. Now, when they get the feedback, hopefully they take that feedback and stick it into their evaluations, okay? But the actual instructional rounds protocol is not evaluative, no.
And I probably agree with maybe half of that and disagree with the other half. If you're doing rounds with a teacher,
yes,
and you go into that teacher's classroom a couple times, and you go on day one and you say, we need to fix A, B, and C.
Yes.
You go back the second time, they've taken care of one, go back the third time, they've taken two, and by the time, terrific.
Yes.
But if by the time you get to that fourth round and things aren't improving,
understand,
how does that not end up in an evaluation? So,
understand instructional rounds is a protocol, okay? So, for example, we do our instructional rounds on Thursdays. Okay, so we go in, we talk to our teachers, we watch everything, and then we come back with feedback. So we have our instructional rounds, and then we have our actual formal and informal observations.
Sure.
Okay, so the instructional rounds are not evaluative, and then we give them feedback. But hopefully, like I said, they take that feedback into our formal and informal observations. So now when I walk in as an informal, they know that is evaluative. And if they didn't take step 3 and 4, now that is part of what we do in the evaluation.
Okay.
So that's why it's a touchy subject of actually making it a safe place, but also getting it into our evaluation system.
Well, and I guess I understand. Like I said, it's tough for me to imagine someone really having a tough teaching period during the rounds portion.
Yes.
And then knocking it out of the park during informal or formal.
Right.
I imagine if there's deficiencies or places they excel in the rounds, they're going to happen either way.
Right.
So
and do remember, whenever we walk into any room, it is evaluative at some point, at some level.
That's kind of where I was going. It's tough for you to pretend you're not their boss.
So if we
you
see something
something
that is egregious, yes, we're going to fix that right away. Okay, but we're just talking about what you were saying before, best practices, and moving our teachers from a very passive environment to a very active environment where our students are not just learning on the surface level, but we're deepening their actual content knowledge.
And just to add on regarding the rounds, we call them, it's based on some of Richard Elmore's work, and Michelle Baker and Noreen Buckley. We've been doing it for a few years, but it's really started to take off because we're also getting administrators from multiple buildings to do rounds together, so we're having that cross collaboration across the district as well. And the next step for that will be also vertically aligning that. We think it would be very important for some of our high school and middle school and elementary administrators to work together to look at best pedagogy, because really when you're teaching and you're teaching well, passive classroom doesn't really work. Doesn't matter if it's a senior or a kindergartner, right? So some of the pedagogical practices, they're all tied into best practices. So some of the next steps is we want to kind of break them out of what they're typically looking at to see some of the things that are happening throughout the entire district, so we can have that calibration as well.
And I would agree with that. And I think it's important during these processes, both when you're evaluating the students and the teachers, that, honesty is the only policy. There was a long time in this district, as you flip through jackets of teacher evaluations, every teacher was the best teacher ever to crack a book. And that doesn't help anybody. A couple of nuts and bolts questions. Rob, now I'm on the AP portion. 2014-15 and 15-16, you had a pretty high number of both AP students and exams, and that's fallen the past 2 years. Is there any rationale for that?
The only rationale I can offer is in conversations with students. Students they're being more deliberate in terms of the courses they're choosing to take. If we go back several years back, we'd have students who would simply take every AP course they possibly could senior year. So they'd be taking 5 AP courses. And they do well in a couple and not so well in a couple others. I think they're being a little bit more selective and focusing on taking 2 or 3 rather than 5 with the hopes of actually earning the credit in those that they are choosing to take.
Sure.
I can't say that explains the entire number, but that is an important factor to it. And of course, the UConn courses, of course, that's the other draw.
Now take a part of that segment away and they just take those classes. And now, having a child who has gone through a number of AP courses, I know how difficult it is to get this 3. I'm not too sure if everyone in the room understands. You can get that 92, 95 in the class for the semester, and you open up that envelope and you got a 2 on the exam and it's crushed. So I've experienced both, and I see how hard these kids work. So, some of these numbers look low as a percentage, but you have to, most of these AP classes I wouldn't pass. I wouldn't pass that statistics course you mentioned. There's some serious work that has to go into these. So I'm glad that, one, we're offering these, and we're offering as many as we do, because I think that is important to get these kids kind of jump-started into a college experience. And as a parent of these kids, it saves you a couple bucks, credit you don't have to buy once they get into college, so that's a nice thing as well. So I would say let's keep working on the items you guys spoke about, because that's, this is now a snapshot in the past, so there's nothing we can really do about these numbers, but putting the work into the classrooms, making sure we're developing better teaching, better curriculum, will allow for better learning, which will allow for better test scores. So please keep working on it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Commissioner Sweeney.
I appreciate all the conversation around the AP courses, and I don't want anyone to think that I don't think those are extremely important and an offering that our students deserve. But I am looking at our SAT scores, and we have a problem.
Right.
So my question would be, what are we doing to identify students throughout the year who maybe are not fully prepared, ready to take that SAT exam and score well? What do we do throughout the year to make sure that we're identifying students and giving them help and support before they take that exam? I struggle with looking at, because I know our staff and our students are working so hard. When I see this, it's hard to fathom that these are the results of all the effort that everyone in this district puts in. So I want to make sure that we have systems in place that identify students who are going to struggle on this exam before they ever hit that exam. What are we doing there?
I'm going to make just comments and then hand it over to the administrators, is that I would highly suggest, in talking, just Noreen and I were in the back looking at everything and talking about that SAT prep program. I think it'd be very important for them to do rounds on that SAT prep program to see what's happening there, to see if it's truly aligned, because that could be a safety net for some of our students in that program. And if that program isn't properly prepping, then we're missing the mark. Tier 1 instruction is really the most important thing that we could talk about. And that maybe sounds like a broken record, but if it's not rigorous enough, if the course isn't rigorous enough and the instruction isn't strong enough, then we're not going to see the results. It's not just like all of a sudden in 11th grade we're going to make up for everything that's happened in the last 6 years, right? So we know that. Unfortunately, I think what you're seeing a lot, and specifically in literacy, my opinion, is we've had a lack of coherent curriculum, 6th to 8th grade, which we're just starting this year. So think about the results and what that's going to happen over the course of time. Okay. Think about the K-5 elementary curriculum. It was the concept-based curriculum for the last 4 to 5 years. That was not, in my opinion, truly aligned to the core standards as well. So I think what you have is, and I don't think many teachers would disagree, as they get their students in 6th grade or 9th grade, students being prepared for the rigors that they want to be able to include in these pieces. But with that being said, that's where we are. It can't be an excuse. It can't be like, well, that's where we are, now we have to wait 10 more years. It can't be that. So to your point, I know beyond what they've already said in terms of monitoring classroom and working in instruction, I don't know if anyone wants to add regarding, what can we do in terms of triaging other than the things that you're doing regarding the SAT prep. I know that we did institute that last year for the first time through Mr. White. Is there anything else you want to add?
I would say, one, we have the SAT prep courses in our high school. We could look to expand those and get more students taking those particular courses. Those are in addition to what they're already taking in terms of math or English courses. Two, I think there's a lot of fruit to be borne out of linking the students' College Board accounts to Khan Academy. That can be done across the board. Students can do that in school with their teachers present. They can do that on their own at home. Teachers can keep track of how their particular students are doing, how much time they're putting in on Khan Academy. So there's a lot there. But I think Mr. Schwartz hit it with one of his first statements. When you look at our results and you look at those percentages, it's not a matter of identifying those 25 students that if we grab them and we can really raise our scores, because it's an extremely large percentage of our students, and we're gonna The only way we can help them achieve better on the SAT is by providing them with the skills they need through Tier 1 instruction. What are we doing every single day in English 9, 10, and 11? What are we doing every single day in Algebra 1, in Geometry, in Algebra 2, and in U.S. history courses and in our science courses? That is how we're going to move the needle, because it is such a large group. It's not merely a matter of grabbing a certain group of students and helping them. It's the majority of our students.
And I just think also administratively, it's easy to get bogged down in operations, human resources, other issues that take them away. And so really reflecting on what are they doing on a daily basis to change the trajectory. You know, the sense of urgency, it can be in this room, it can be at central office, has to live not only within their offices, but also in the schools as well. And so, you know, in the beginning of the year, going through the data pieces, Tara did work with the administrators to go through this data very closely as a group to talk about those strategies, talk about the things that they're doing. And I did forget about Khan Academy, making sure that they're overseeing their counselors and the teachers, and making sure the students are 100% linked and they're using that material. And if it means going out to parents, going out to community, doing what they have to do to make sure that students are using that and tracking it, then that's what they have to do.
Dr. Ruffin.
I would like to add a little. I get excited when we start talking about instruction, but I want to thank our principals and assistant principals for being here this evening and for responding to several of the questions and the things that you're doing in your school. I want to add to this and that it is an entire district's responsibility, and it starts in pre-K, and it starts very early. And we have trends right now that we need to pay attention to, especially in what happens in our pre-K to second grade, where that Tier 1 instruction has to be so strong that we have most of our students going in the third grade that are grade level ready. We have a major shift that occurred in curriculum and instruction. And with the Common Core standards that are adopted in Connecticut, it was more than just a statement that was made. It was the entire teaching materials that had to change. So it is very possible that people could be working very hard, but if they're working on the wrong thing, or if the expectations are so low that they think that students right now that are performing like they might have been 15 years ago were okay, it's deficient today. And so that shift is really challenging in secondary schools, especially if you've been teaching secondary schools for a very long time. You know, you hang on to that novel, or you hang on to that literature, or you hang on to the book that you really want to learn because you're passionate about it. But today, it's informational text. It's critical thinking. It's critical writing. It's all of those things, and that's very different than what we expected of our students 10 years ago. Right. And while we made the instructional shift in terms of saying that we were going to apply Common Core, our materials were not always forthcoming in a rapid rate of speed that would allow us to be able to make as much progress as we wanted to. So we know that now. We're very much aware of it. It's hit home. And we have some strategies that we're putting into place, and we appreciate the support of the board as we move this forward. But it's hard work, and it's an extremely hard work for a high school to be able to catch up on something that's a pre-K to post-secondary education job. So we're committed to that work. We're going to make that happen, but it's going to be hard, and it is hard. And the instructional materials and the shifts that have to occur in the high school level are very slow in coming because the high schools don't have some of the same materials that we're talking about with our kindergarten through 8th grade students. They did not get an upgrade in curriculum and instruction for math and science and social studies. They did get some for mathematics, but that language arts is huge. And we have not really provided any language arts, the shifts that occur in English 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's significantly different than what teachers were required to teach 5 years ago. And yet we have not made that shift for them. And that's going to be critically important that we provide it so that they can also make certain the professional development, and those walkthroughs, those instructional rounds are going to be reflective of the standard. So when you hear the high school principals and assistant principals talking about Tier 1 instruction, that means we should expect all children to get that. And all children are not getting that in every classroom across the city. Okay. Because we still have some low expectations for some children. And until we raise that expectation for all children, all means all, and we provide that quality instruction for all children, and then we provide interventions, we're not there yet. We're going to get there, but we're not there yet. And that's hard work, and that's when you start hearing moaning and groaning. But it's coming, because that's where the rubber meets the road, and I think that's what they're saying. They're trying to do some things, but we acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of work to do. And we have a sense of urgency that we can't be complacent in any way. And they know that everybody's looking. They know that. I know that. And we're going to work very hard to make some improvements. But it's going to take all of us really pulling together, because the high schools have a tremendously challenging job. Teachers, administrators have an incredibly challenging job, because that shift is really hard for someone who's been doing something for 20 years and they're not really understanding why the results are not as good as it used to be. And it will never be until we change. That's just where we are.
It sounds like we have our challenges before us, and we have our experts here who are giving it their best, and we really appreciate that. I just had one question in terms of capacity, and maybe this isn't to answer now, but as we look at our budget priorities, given the challenges that you have, I think we as a board, one thing we can do is make sure that you have the resources and the support you need to do this hard work and to help us. So I would welcome, and I think the board would welcome, what are your priorities in terms of helping to improve instruction? What do we really need to do in allocating resources so they're equitable for all students across the board? So I think that's something we can be partners with you in doing as we look at, are we investing enough in curriculum? Are we investing enough in support services and so forth? So I think I want you to know that we really feel that we want to be partners with this, and the rubber hits the road in the money and where we allocate our resources. So I want to make sure we are listening to what you need and allocating those resources, and it's reflective in our budgetary choices. So I think that's our role as a board, to be that support. So I appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Johanna Hayes, request approval of a MOU with Relay Graduate School of Education to provide alternative route to certification.
That passive classroom at my age.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Well, a little tired right now.
I'm here tonight to request approval of the MOU for the Relay program.
We got it in our emails.
You should have a copy of the new contract. This would be our third year going into this contract. There are no significant changes to the language in the contract. It's just the date and the numbers in their tuition have been adjusted. But I wanted to be available to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Awad.
Why did the tuition go up so high?
On their end?
Yeah.
It reflects,
And it went up for our people too.
well, the first year, so in the pilot year, you mean from year one to this year?
In 17-18, it was $17,500, and now it's $29,150. Why did they raise, what bore that out?
So it went from a 1 year to 19 months. So they built in that additional year for support through the testing cycle. They also balanced it with their scholarship portion went up. So when it was $17,000 that first year, They offset most of the cost, and our candidates only had to pay $250. We paid $250 out of pocket, and the candidates paid $250. The next year, although it was still $17,000, the out-of-pocket cost was capped at $4,000, of which we paid $1, and this year, the out-of-pocket cost is capped at $5,200.
52 or 42? Because the document says 42.
I'm sorry, 42.
Okay.
No, 52. The candidate is responsible for 42, and we pay $1,000.
Okay. So the additional 7 months is just support, or is there actual classes?
So the program was, the first year, their pilot year, it was just 1 year. It was 12 months beginning to end. And then there was, you finished the coursework, and then you scheduled your own testing, and you did everything. Now, it's still the 12 months of coursework and the internships, but then the rest of the time, you still have classes, there's test prep, so it's until you test out of all the programs. I mean, of all the exams. So there is still, they meet, you go over the information, there's support for testing.
Okay, it just seems like a large increase. It's a $12,000 increase for 7 months. So I just want to make sure that there's significant content in that 7-month period for that additional 12 grand.
I don't know what, I mean, I went to the state, they just had to go back to the state for reaccreditation in October and justify the tuition increase. That's not on our part. Our
No,
part
I'm
is
just
still,
wondering what it
yeah,
was.
but they went, so some of the concern was that, what do you do to support people after that year if they're having difficulty with the testing? So they had to build out the program to accommodate for that and went before the State Board of Education in October to recertify their accreditation, and it was approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we love the program. It's great, and we're seeing results. And,
And-
Commissioner Sweeney?
Johanna, are we doing anything to identify, we have some issues with staffing at Career Academy in the manufacturing field and the tech ed field. Are we doing anything to identify people in those areas who might be a fit for this, for Relay, to get them in there?
Relay is not a program that would work for that because currently they only offer in areas of math, science, elementary education, even though elementary is not identified as a shortage area, the need for elementary teachers of color was identified. So they don't offer any programs that would address tech ed or some of the career paths that we have shortage areas in. So this program wouldn't work for that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Vice President Hart.
No, I just wanted to, I was looking at your highlights, Johanna, and I think that we need to take heed of what you've written here in regards to the program. But you also state that moving forward, the district should seek private partnerships to help candidates with tuition costs, okay? And you state that Relay is just one pathway of certification and more partnerships are needed to meet a growing demand. And you also mentioned the programs such as Waterbury Promise, which strengthen Grow Your Own. And I agree with that. And having looked at what's occurring in New Haven, what's occurring in Hartford, in regards to their Promise programs, I think that is some advice that we need to heed. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. But I also wanted to thank you for all that you have done in regards to assisting with the minority hiring, Black and Latino hiring. We were given a directive from CHRO to look for ways to improve hiring of Black and Latino educators. And I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you've done. We were given that directive, the mayor signed off on it, and hence the advisory committee was formed. But also in that, you know, the hiring of you, because we had just lost Dr. Tucker, and you just stepped right in there and, you know, began with the hiring, the recruitment, et cetera. So, again, I just want to thank you for all that you've done in that regard, and for your advice in this regard, and I hope that we could take this further. We have received compliments from the CHRO Commission, and with what we are doing in Waterbury, you're setting forth the targets for hiring, minority hiring, et cetera. So just thank you. I just want to make sure that that didn't go unnoticed, and that you knew how I felt about it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And even with this program, much of what we did here in Waterbury, the state used as a guide, because we offered that second year of support long before before the state said it was necessary.
Right.
We really worked really hard to ensure that it worked, and once we decided to take it on, we did everything we could to make sure that our participants were successful. I would say, I think it's critically important, to Commissioner Sweeney's point, that we partner with other organizations, because this is not the only pathway to certification. And I can't meet the needs of everyone who is interested through this one program, because they just don't have the capacity to do it. So it really is important, if we are truly invested in building capacity within the district and reaching out. We did something that no other district did, and we found people within our own ranks that were already here, that were certified in other countries, tremendous candidates, had multiple degrees, and just were not teaching. And every time I go to the state, they're so impressed with the work that we did here, with just taking a second look and growing our own, which is what we said we would do.
Thank you so much, and you know you have the full support of the board. And I think, as we said, this work started about 8 years ago, or 6 years ago, when we did, as a board, make hiring people of color and more teachers, more diversity a priority. So thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz is up.
Hi, good evening.
You have 12 and 13.
Yes. First item is the Waterbury Symphony Orchestra working with WAMS, as we have done in the past. This is paid entirely out of the WAMS Magnet Grant. They work specifically with students in multiple areas to help one-on-one and also as groups. And so this is a great program. Hopefully many of you have taken advantage of going to see our students play at Waterbury Arts Magnet School. And Lauren is looking to include this, again, specifically for this year, out of her grant.
So this is specific to WAMS out of the Magnet School grant, so
Yes.
it doesn't apply to any of our other high schools?
It does not.
At this point, okay. Is there any thought to expanding this partnership?
Yeah.
I mean, is it a lot of money?
So I think Lauren forgot that she was supposed to stay. She walked out, and I asked her to stay for this program, but I know she also is rehearsing, because she does have
Oh, the chorus line, that's right.
chorus line
Yeah.
this weekend, so I was going to do a shout out for that. So some of the questions that I had around that were a specific number of students that I wanted her here to answer. However, it would be great to expand it out to other students, because obviously we know that there are many students throughout the district that are extremely musically talented that just don't happen to go to WAMS. Right now, the funding source is through the WAMS Magnet School, so therefore the WAMS students receive it via that.
Okay, I think it's something, I know the superintendent had mentioned the arts and music, and I think the equity issue, making sure that all of our students have these enrichment programs. So it's something we probably could look into. Mr. Edwards, did you want, you look like you wanted to say something.
I had a question.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, Commissioner Awad, okay.
So my question is, for $60,000, how many kids?
That's
Because that's a lot of money.
That's what I asked Lauren to stick around for, so I will get that information to you as soon as possible. And I did ask Mr. Edwards as he was walking out, because he was the former VP at WAMS, if you recall. So I said,
I see. Okay.
before you go too far, I go, you may know the
You look
information.
like you wanted to say something.
No,
so.
I didn't. Mr. Schwartz asked me to stay, and they asked some of those questions. The orchestra works not only with the kid as an orchestra, but it also works with the kids individually to help them to plan and develop the actual plays and things that we have. I'm at Wilby now. That they have at WAMS. So they not only help with that, they also teach one-on-one with the kids. There's 4 people, high strings and low strings, and if you know anything about the strings, that is the hardest thing to teach. So they actually help our kids with that also.
I appreciate that clarification, but I think numbers might be important.
Yeah, we'll get that information.
And you want this program at Wilby, right?
I guess the numbers are hard because it's not just the orchestra. They work with all the plays too, and because WAMS runs 3 or 4 plays a year, they actually work with all the kids that work with in the plays also.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying the numbers are sort of hard. So it actually deals with a lot of the student body, because a lot of the student body are in the plays.
Commissioner Awad?
Kids in the play, in the orchestra for the play, or, I mean, how is the symphony interacting with the kids in the play? I'm struggling to make the leap on how the symphony is helping a student that's performing or a stagehand. I could see if WAMS provides their own music for those plays, then that's one thing. But again, it's the same number of kids. It's just that much more interaction. So I really want to get an idea is how many kids are interacted, not
Okay,
necessarily the programs. And I'm not trying to be an idiot about it, but it's a lot of money, so it better be a lot of kids.
I agree.
All right, we'll get that information. Okay, thank you. Is there somebody else?
Well, it's by semester. That's
Okay.
for a year, 60 grand for the year.
All right, number 13.
September 1st, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Broken up into 2 semesters.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be nice?
As you recall, I've come here for several years on Starbase. This is a program through the Department of Defense, the Connecticut Military Department, for our 5th grade students. They go for 5 days at Naugatuck Valley Community College. There is no money exchanged for this program, but we do provide busing for students, and obviously the lunch, as in the past, the curriculum has stayed specific to the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math. Always get glowing reports back from the students and the teachers. We wish we could expand it. Not every 5th grade class is able to go. I don't know if you were aware of that.
They don't have every 5th grade.
Yeah, they don't have the capacity to do. They can do 1 class at a time, and so unfortunately that rotates through the schools based on an administrative selection process. They don't have the capacity to take on. They don't have the staff to take on every single student. For example, in Chase, 5 5th grade classes for 5 days. So that is one thing that is difficult, but the program has not changed and has stayed fairly the same for the last 6 years.
Do we rotate the schools per year so that?
All schools participate. They rotate the classes in the classrooms
Okay.
and in the students and the teachers per school.
Is there any opportunity for the classes who are not able to go to NVCC to do the curriculum with the teachers in their classroom?
Well, I think there is an opportunity for John Reed to hook up with the program as well to see if there's anything that they're doing over there that can correlate with our curriculum. I think that is probably the best correlation that can happen for right now, specifically for the students that aren't going. But there are clear connections between their curriculum and the curriculum that we've adopted for 5th grade now.
Good. Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Hernandez.
Not a question, just Just to go back to number 12,
Yep.
your dating is wrong. I don't know if you already sent this out, but it
Oh,
says.
2019.
Right.
Yes.
So just if
see that.
you are going to send it out or whatever, make sure you change the
Will do.
dating so that it's correct.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Editorial. Very good. Okay, next is the Board of Education 2019 meeting schedule. Any comments? 15 and 16, use of school facilities by school organizations and/or city departments, use of school facilities by outside organizations and/or waiver requests. Any comments? Okay. Superintendent's update to the board. Any comments? Okay. And there is no executive session tonight, so could I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I just have a point of personal privilege first?
Yes.
So I want to thank you for your email yesterday regarding the social media issue. And I just want to state for the public that the injudicious use of social media by any member of the public is unfortunate, but when it's done in a manner that creates disruption in the school, as you said yesterday, it's unfortunate. And I think that particularly when the district is continually displayed in an unfortunate light by some of the social media postings from this particular entity, it's very disheartening. I know we've challenged the Republican American, if Mr. Gagnon is still here, to portray some of the good things we do. I think we need to challenge the other member of the Fourth Estate to do the same thing. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.